let's go into a process to begin to release trauma. Is and let's go. You know what? Let's just go to the meditation room. Why don't we? The first thing is to recognize the trauma. What is the thing that is traumatized you the most? And it depends on who you are, right? So like some I've said, it's sexual um, manipulation and sexual abuse. Sometimes it's verbal abuse. Sometimes it's in some cases it's it could be something really small, but you got to recognize it. What is the thing that's traumatizing you? I have 4 kids, and I found that the things that traumatized them that I said and did to them were things that, from my perspective, were extremely mild based on my upbringing. But to them, it was pretty traumatizing, right? Like, so for instance, when I was doing the martial arts, and I've always done the martial arts, but when I was actually teaching it, I would take my kids, all of them, with the exception of my youngest, because she was so much younger than the other kids. I would take my oldest son, my middle son, and my daughter, and I taught private lessons, and I would bring them over, usually at separate times, and I would have them spar with these kids. And some of my kids liked it, sparring, and other ones were like, hated it, didn't want to do it at all. And so that was a trauma to them, right? We've had to release that from them so that it didn't, bother them, right? So that's number one, acknowledging the trauma. Number two is seeking professional help, and you can do it on your own if you want, or go to therapy. Therapy's never a bad thing, or a coaching or mentor. It's really very similar. They're parallel type of situations, a little bit different, right? Different roads going the same way. But the fact of the matter is, you have to look at it and say, what is my outcome? A lot of times therapy is like a long-term solution to remove the trauma, but what else happens after that? When you hire a coach or a mentor, you're usually removing the trauma for a reason. Higher performance in your work, your job, your business, your relationships. That's the key. And that's where I believe, it's my opinion, that where therapists might not have as much of a power, right? Unless it's a like a sports psychologist or something like that, right? But you can use self help techniques that are going to get you into a mindset. So number one is is meditation, and obviously we're in the meditation room. So it's as simple as just sitting with your hands on your lap. You want to put them in any kind of configuration, it doesn't matter, and just relax. And just tell yourself, I'm calm and relaxed. And you bring the energy down and out through your feet. And the energy that you're bringing out is negative energy. It's almost like you're scraping the negative and you're pushing it out your feet. You're taking the trauma and you're removing it and pushing it out your feet. You can just sit and relax. Some people sit like this. The thing with meditation, a lot of people get into this. You've got to sit a certain way. You've got to have your tongue on the roof of your mouth. Yeah, those are all good things, but they're not make or break. You know what's make or break with meditation? Freaking doing it on a daily basis, putting in the flight time. I can't tell you how many people tell me about all these exotic techniques, and I say, how many hours have you put in doing that? Well, I do it every now and then. Okay, well, I don't even need to talk to you because you haven't done enough. You haven't put in 10,000 hours. I don't need to talk to you. But it becomes a ritual, which now becomes a part of your life. And so when you're doing the meditation techniques to remove trauma, it's simply putting yourself in a place of relaxation and you just call out that trauma. I rebuke you. It no longer affects me. It's still there somewhere in my body, but it no longer affects me. The other thing you want to imagine as you're doing your meditation, and I've used this in one of my books, I've written about this in one of my books, and that is this, is you, when you're meditating, you imagine the screen, right? The screen in your mind, and you're focused on the problem, right? And let's say the problem is like this. You know, it's taking up that much of the screen. What you want to do, outside of detaching from the problem, right? The trauma, is you want to detach, but you want to you want to compartmentalize it. But you want to take that, and you want to take that, well, let's just move it from this side. Let's just show it from this. So that was the big size. And what we want to do is we want to incrementally take the power away from this trauma. And how we're going to do that is by incrementally decreasing the power that it has over us. And this is a mental exercise. And if you wanted to do it on a piece of paper, on a board, you could do it. But it's best when you do it inside your mind, as you're meditating, when your body's fully relaxed. And you keep shrinking it. You keep shrinking it down. Shrink it down. Shrink it down to where it's insignificant. And even though that trauma played a part in your life at one point, and maybe it bothered you and maybe it didn't, and maybe sometimes it bothered you and maybe it didn't, but it was trauma nonetheless. Now you take that trauma and you make it super small. You might not even be able to see that, but it's a grain of sand. And you take that grain of sand and you move it to the bottom corner. It doesn't matter which one. Could be that one. Could be that one. Quite frankly, it could be the top corner. It doesn't matter. I like pushing things down, though. And you take that trauma and you squeeze it. Squeeze it, squeeze it, squeeze it. Until it's like a grain of sand. Like a salt. And you take that and you put that at the bottom. If this is our screen, see that screen? I drop it. Still there. The trauma's still there. But it's this big now. It's this big. It's no longer that big. We've taken it and we've condensed it and we've made it almost infinitesimal, so small. That's how you reduce and release the trauma. And then using an exercise like pulling the energy down and out the feet. Now again, the simplest things are the things that work. You don't have to go through so much things that are unnecessary. But again, the biggest thing that I notice with people that I coach and that I mentor, it's not a technique issue. It's not a methodology. It's an implementation issue. Everybody wants the information. Very few put in the implementation. Are you working out every day? Are you training every day? Are you meditating every day? Are you thinking every day? Are you focusing on your goals every day? Are you focusing on your subliminals every day, on your affirmations, your self-talk? Are you doing this every day? If you're not, that's why you're not getting the results that you want. And so then these traumas build up more. And so you have to go back in and release them. Make them small. Detach. That's how simple it is. It's also how hard it is, because you've got to do it on a daily basis. But if you take this approach to making that happen, you're going to get the results. I've never coached or mentored anyone in my almost 30 years, it'll be 30 years this fall in the internal side of things. I've never coached anyone that trained on a consistent basis that didn't get spectacular results. Bottom line. And if you do that, you will get spectacular results as well. I've enjoyed sharing. Thanks for watching, and have a fantastic day. So long.